Hello. Chapter 8 Sunless. Monique pressed a hand to the wall's rough slate and ambled deeper into the tunnel. The underground was quiet except for her grasping throat, each desperate breath sucking in chilly air. The way ahead was unseen and unknown, but there was no going back. Lady couldn't hurt her again. Wonderful. Other things still could, especially when it was too dark to see. Monique's scraping sneakers told her the path sloped downward. She almost felt used to descent. The world had been pushing Monique down for as long as she could remember, even before she left Flushing, and while at one time she thought Donna might pull her up, instead she'd only dragged Donna down. And here, in the deepest place, Monique found monsters. Maybe if her parents knew how far she'd fallen, they would at last regret having banished their only child. Unlikely. That was her imagination preying on her thoughts with something more painful than monsters in the dark. The illusion that her parents could ever accept her. Donna had tried to kill that particular dream. Nothing we could ever change would have made a difference, she'd said. If one of us was a man, our hearts would be different, and neither of us would love each other. And then your parents will want to meet my family. There's our age gap. Even where we live in New York is different. Just as well we're queer and like nobody's business, and that they tossed both of us aside in the first place. Get it done with that way. She had tittered, and even then stared at her hands, her eyes solemn. How did we ever come from them? Monique couldn't answer then. She wouldn't have had an answer now had a phantom Donna stood beside her and promised to become real and leave this place if only Monique could solve that puzzle. Faint bluish-green light outlined a curve in the tunnel ahead. Whatever things had killed Lady might see Monique if she kept going, but better to be in the light where they too might be visible. The air nipped her skin and she tugged her scarves tighter around her neck. Her breath puffed out in cold clouds where the tunnel opened into a vast cavern. Stalactites dripped from the ceilings, with points coated in glowing fungus. City bus-sized mushrooms sprang from every wall, their caps bright with blue-white light, cast a black silhouette at the cavern's center. A building grew there, with a surface sleek and glassy. Pointed spires curved from all sides, and their shafts reflected points of fungal light like stars across a night sky. Between the spires, a massive round center climbed toward the ceiling. The stalactites could have kissed it had they dripped any lower. It was a flower of a building, blooming for daylight that would never come. The Sunless Palace. Monique's path hugged the cavern wall a few paces before jutting into a narrow stone bridge that crossed the cavern. It stretched between two curling spires and ended at the palace's core. Wooden beams patched up the gaps in the stone path. The worms people must not have trusted the worm's will to keep them from falling. Monique started to laugh and then covered her mouth. Too much noise might bring the creatures that killed Lady. Water dripped from the ceiling into an unseen pool, making frequent plinking sounds that echoed through the cavern. Monique imagined that rain or melting snow had to flood the palace's base at times. She leaned over the side of the bridge to glimpse an underground lake and regretted it. The drop was far, and, as with the spires, the water below reflected fungi-covered stalactite points to imitate bright stars in its surface. Falling here would feel like falling into the sky before the water's surface smashed every bone in Monique's body. She turned ahead and followed the bridge. One spire eased past her, then another. She didn't stop to marvel at them. The palace beckoned. Where the bridge ended, a tall, black, and doorless opening welcomed her. One wooden plank squeaked underfoot to announce her arrival. Goose flesh coated her arms. Without pause, she crossed into the palace. A dome stuck up from the center of the floor, as if the palace had been carved from the dark, smooth stone around the top of another building. Slender windows glowed along the dome's sides. The hallway around it formed a ring. Doorways breached the walls, but each opened onto stairways leading down, and Monique wasn't ready to descend any deeper yet. She stuck her head through the nearest window. The dome formed the cap of a 3-tiered room. Glowing fungi plastered its walls, giving light to the high windows at Monique's level. At the middle tier, a stone balcony stuck out from the wall. Ornate stone railing decorated its lip, overlooking the lowest floor. Sudden, raucous laughter bounded through the palace. The lowest level was stuffed with things to see, but Monique couldn't discern floor from furniture yet. Shadows smeared the edge of her vision. White walls and glowing mushrooms must have scarred her sight. Her eyes might never work right again. She was going blind or just crying or both. The only thing she could see below was Donna Ashton, the source of the laughter. Her dark lips parted in an expectant grin. Mon amour,